launched in a moment. Slight variation, we have some new participants to the panel. Rod Coker, but our team is made up of Dan Valentine, who will tee off with a short video and tell us a little bit about Guardian Centers. Then Randall Murphy, who you heard from a few moments ago. You'll be hearing a little bit more from Randall. Ed Behan, then Eric Ratenow, will be summarized after the breakout sessions by Walt Carter, being our distinguished speaker, summarizing your thoughts and solutions. Just a word or two about me. My name is Marilyn Bloom. I work for Birch Communications as a Director of Talent Development. And I'm thrilled to be here because this is my annual refresh. Paul and his collaboration with each and every one of you and your companies pulls together thoughtful leaders in learning and related areas to take time out of your busy days to share what you're doing, your dreams, your aspirations, and to look at how we can collaborate to create solutions that will drive us forward. In the several years that I've known Paul, I find that he's always just on the edge of pushing us to think beyond our current conditions to what could be and what we can be. And it's a moment of reflection, learning for ourselves, but then we have the opportunity to consider what can we do with this. For some, it may be validation that we're in similar conditions and instances and areas with our businesses, and others, it may give us the idea to catapult us to where our next steps will be. And for some of us, we may think, been there, done that. In talking about the safety of first responders as the issue we'll be hearing from this very distinguished panel about, it occurred to me that Maslow, in his hierarchy of basic human needs, places safety and security at the foundation. So we are all dealing in a very sophisticated way of dealing with the basic needs that we have as humans. Thank you for being here. And without belaboring any further, I would like to start our discussion today with Dan Valentine from Guardian Centers. He has a brief video. And then
I'll show the brief video in a second. I want to lead into it. Okay. I am Dan Valentine. Yes, I am an obnoxious aviator. Thank you, Brad. Randall shared that.
You gotta let it go.
Spent 25 years in the Army between active duty and reserve. And that's going to play back into what I'm doing. Then I spent a couple decades doing technology sales for customer interaction type software. So I say a soldier, aviator, and then a sales guy are probably my two stocks in the trade. What I am going to talk about is because for the last couple of years I no longer work for Guardian Centers, but I worked for a place that trained emergency responders. And in those 2 years, I've learned some phenomenal things that I think talk directly to this question about, how do you make eliminate injury and death to the personal responders. And this is a great big challenge because the very nature of their job is to run into danger. And I'm reminded of an old saying where it says, a ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are for. And I think this applies to our responders. The thing I heard over and over again while I was down there is, while 90% of society runs away from danger, these are the guys that run to danger. They're either there to eliminate the danger itself, or they're there in order to remove you from the dangerous situation. But in doing so, they're exposing themselves to risk. Whether it's a toxic environment, you have a gunman, you have a a burning building or a building that has been structurally compromised. And I want to point to one example of that you're all very familiar with. It's a day called 9/11. There's two great big tall buildings in New York City. And on that day, 411 emergency responders perished, not because they happened to be there, but because they deployed to that area and perished when the buildings came down. And I want to take two specific individuals. One, a policewoman named Moira Smith. She was at World Trade Center 2 when World Trade Center 1 was hit, and she is the one who reported it back to the New York Police Department and got the wheels turning from that end. She stayed in World Trade Center 2, and she did something very simple but very profound. She was up on the stairwell, and she just kept telling people, keep moving, don't look around. And there's a couple of reasons for don't look around, because it was pretty gory, there were bodies and the whole 9 yards. But the bottom line is she ended up saving dozens or possibly hundreds of lives just in her simple moving people out of the building. And she was doing this when the building collapsed, and so she perished. The second one was a fellow named Chief Ray Downey. Chief Ray Downey was probably one of the most decorated firemen in the #1 fire department in the world, FDNY. He was the legend of many successful rescues, probably a guy who we could make a full-length movie about, and it would be awesome, exciting, and all that, and you wouldn't even have to fictionalize it. And let me tell you how revered this guy was at FDNY, the #1 fire department in the world. You know what his nickname was? God. They called him God. And anyway, my point in telling you this is he ran in, and when the FDNY responded, he was among them, ran in there, 63 years old, ran in there, and he perished when the building collapsed as well. I tell you this because these weren't rookies, these weren't people who didn't know what they were doing, these are people who were very experienced, perhaps the most experienced in the world, and yet they died. Monday morning quarterbacks could sit back and say, well, they shouldn't have run in there. And you look at that, and you got to weigh that and say, in the context of the question we're asking today, should they or should they not have? Now, I say all that, and I say I have two answers to the question, not how do we eliminate, because I don't know that you can eliminate people who run in front of a gunman, people who run to save people out of a tower, whatever. And that is, there are two fundamental answers to the question. Better technology and better training. Technology, things like helping locate living persons faster, seeing into zero visibility environments, sensors on your clothing let you know instantaneously when you enter either a toxic or a radiological environment, 3D renderings of the buildings you are going into so you can move around because you have something that shows you what it looks like on the inside of the building you're going into, even though you've never been there. And something I thought of while I was thinking about this is, how about an instantaneous assessment of the structural integrity of a building you're going into, along with predictive modeling of the likelihood and time of the collapse. So you're looking at the World Trade Center, and how about something that has enough of the structural data that you can push a button and in a matter of minutes it can give you some predictions. These are the kind of things that technology is saying. The other one, and this is where my video is going to come in, is better training. I was working at a place called Guardian Centers, and not computer terminal. And my job was to sell our training to emergency management organizations. Cities, towns, states.
You started it.
Start going. Well, bottom line. It doesn't have the music, but picture very exciting music. This is Guardian Centers. This guy, by the way, is the son of Ray Downey, who was the fireman I told you about. He was the guy in charge of the FDNY contingent that was doing this training. But this is a place where you give people 3D training, realistic training. One of the things that people don't get are unpredictable and stress-induced type training that these guys need. Another thing that you get at a place of a scale like this is things like 9/11, things like Hurricane Katrina. You're bringing resources from all over the country to work in this environment. And guess what? Some of them are working together for the first time. How do you manage that? And how do you get them to work together more efficiently? So, in closing, what I want to pose as a question is this: for both technology and for training, the big #1 issue is a thing called money. And so I'm going to ask you at 2 levels. The first level is very generic. How do you enable these people to get the money they need, to get the technology they need, and to get the training they need so that they can be more protected when they're serving us? The second question is a corollary to that. Are there public-private initiatives that could be done to support that? Because after all, they are supporting us. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. So the table color that Dan has will be the pink table, and the 2 questions to be discussed there will be: how do you get the funding for the tech and technology, and are there public and private resources